Welcome to the Academy, a series focused on the basics of Star Wars The Old Republic. Have you ever seen the chat in Star Wars The Old Republic and wondered what exactly LF2M DPS MM GTFM then G2G X up in summons means? Players online have developed their own language of acronyms, which are a combination of shortened chat speak, as well as unique acronyms that only exist in Star Wars The Old Republic to describe the different activities in the game, from Flashpoints and Operations to PvP. In this video, we'll be going over as many acronyms as I could think of in the game, and I hope this helps you figure out what type of activities you can join when you see them in chat. Let's start off simple with factions. Imp or IMP or EMP is short for Empire, so Imperial side. Pub or Rep is short for Republic, the good guys. Now let's talk about the types of activities in the game, and players trying to form groups for them. So PvE is player versus environment, usually means Flashpoints or Operations, sometimes story, usually means Operations in this game. PvP is player versus player content, so war zones and arenas. RPvP, I don't see this get used often, but it can stand for ranked PvP. We'll go through a bunch of more PvP acronyms coming up. Op for OP usually stands for operation, but you gotta check the context. FP is usually for Flashpoint. GSF is for Galactic Starfighter, the player versus player space mode. GF does not stand for girlfriend, it usually stands for Group Finder, the tool in the game that lets you match up with random players. Much in the same vein, LFM means looking for more. LF1M means looking for one more person for the group, and LF2M, looking for two more people, and it goes on like that. Q, like literally just the letter Q, or QUE, or QUEUE, which is the actual proper spelling, means join the waitlist for group finder activities. People will say queue up for PvP, queue up for solo if they want to do ranked PvP, queue up for Galactic Starfighter, queue up for Flashpoints, whatever it is they're looking for more people in the group finder for. If someone says they got a pop, it means they received a spot in the group activity through the group finder. It usually means they have to leave in some capacity for a few minutes to go play their match or their Flashpoint. A PUG, a PUG, is short for a pickup group, a group made of random players, not necessarily people who know each other or know anything about each other. The opposite, a pre-made, is a group that's at least partially created with players who know each other. This usually refers to player versus player content, though it can be for an operation as well. DVL stands for Dark versus Light. This one could be referring to the old retired event that lots of players want to come back, or it could be referring to the Dark versus Light system, which is where you get darker light tokens when you gain renown. Players also tried to form groups for the Dark versus Light bosses that are hidden across multiple planets and drop really good rewards. RP stands for Roleplay, which is a text-based activity where you create a story with other players about your characters. IC stands for In Character in Roleplay, and OOC stands for Out of Character in Roleplay. You'll often see players make jokes about ERP, which is... well, I'm not reading this one out loud, but it's for adults only. CQ stands for Conquest, and CP usually stands for Conquest Points, so I don't see that used a lot. And Conq, just CONQ, usually also stands for Conquest. Conquest is a way for guilds to compete with each other, as well as a way for you to earn some individual personal rewards. TEC usually stands for the Eternal Championship. Sometimes people use just EC, but that's also a short form for one of the operations, so it gets a bit confusing. WB almost always stands for World Boss, so people looking for more players to run the world bosses out in the open world. BBA usually stands for the Bounty Brokers Association, which is the bounty event, a limited time event in the game. Swoop just by itself usually means the Swoop event, another limited time event, and GREE, GREE, usually stands for the GREE event, which has some great group activities. The word summon or summons might come up a lot if you join group events, and this is a really great function in the game where certain players, depending on their rank in their guild, can teleport you to the location. So if someone says they have a summons, that's awesome. That means that they'll teleport you immediately to the location no matter where you are. And if someone is asking for a summons, it means they're hoping to get teleported to the location of the event. Similarly, port, P-O-R-T, usually means teleport, which usually means summons. Instance, you'll also see a lot if you're doing group events out in the open world. It's what version of the map you are on. The game will create multiple instances of the same map, so all players aren't jammed onto the same map. So you can open your map to change the instance, and it'll drop down on the bottom right. So if your group mate's in instance 1 and you're in instance 2, you won't be able to see each other until you get in the same instance. I don't see this one a lot, but TTP means transfer to player instance. So that's matching up in your instance. FS can sometimes stand for flagship, which is a guild housing, a guild stronghold. SH usually stands for stronghold, once again the player housing. And SP stands for spacebar, and so does SB. This is usually a request from impatient group members to spacebar through the conversation. Sometimes it's a polite request. Sometimes it's a command. If you're doing flashpoints, they want you to spacebar and skip past the cutscenes so they can go a little faster. So there's all kinds of funny terms for achievements, which are something fun. More experienced players can go hunting in the game. So there's Chivo, Cheeves, and occasionally Cheeto. And if someone asks you to link Chivo, they want you to link the achievement in chat. Sometimes they're just curious, other times they're trying to see what your status and how far you've gotten along with your achievements. Now let's talk about communicating. DM stands for direct message, for a private message whisper, like a message that's directly to another player. It can also, however, mean the Darth Malgus server, so just look for context. If someone says DM me, it means private message me. Another way to say that is PST for please send tell, for a private message whisper, a holdover from another game. And PM also means private message, so whisper me. If someone types something funky in chat that doesn't quite make sense in context, and then they type MT, it stands for mistell. We don't call them tells in this game, but the language still carries over, and it means, oops, I said the wrong thing in the wrong chat or to the wrong person. Sometimes messages in game are neutral, sometimes they're mean, but plenty of players say lots of nice things in chat as well. So let's go over some of those nice acronyms. TYFG means thank you for group or thank you for game. TY stands for thank you, and so does THX or thanks. GL means good luck. HF means have fun, and a lot of players like to use GLHF for good luck, have fun. GG stands for good game. Sometimes it's sarcastic, but most of the time it literally just is a way to acknowledge that you got to play a decent game together. GJ is good job. GJG is good job, guys. Grats with a Z at the end stands for congratulations, and so does GZ stand for congratulations. If someone's done you a favor and you thank them, they may say NP for no problem and NBD, no big deal. They're both similar to you're welcome, but the player is saying it really was not an issue to help you. Don't think anything of it. OMW means on my way, so I fell behind in some manner, but I'll be there soon. Here's a real Star Wars one. Mtfbwu. If you see that one, it means may the force be with you. FTW means for the win. It's usually just a positive sentiment. PLS means please. PLZ means please as well. JK means just kidding. Lmao means laughing my booty off. LOL means laughing out loud or just a general sentiment of humor. LUL is kind of a sarcastic spelling of lol. Just kind of amused in general. Kind of like on my way, there's also BRT, be right there. If you want to share some more funniness, there's ROFL, a very old one, rolling on floor laughing when you find something especially funny. OFC, of course, so it's kind of like AFK. OMG, oh my god. It usually is just referring to the sentiment of surprise, like a shock maybe, usually in a funny sense. SRY usually stands for a short form of sorry. WB means welcome back. Like we mentioned, it could be World Boss, but if you left and you came back and somebody says WB, welcome back. And woot. This is kind of a funny one. It could be spelled with O's or with zeros. It's just a general sentiment of excitement. It doesn't mean anything in particular. While not all acronyms are specific to Star Wars The Old Republic, here's some ones that you'll probably see in a ton of different contexts, called chat speak, quick little acronyms that people will use while texting, email, any way you can communicate quickly through text. So we'll go over these because they do get used a lot in The Old Republic as well. So AFAIK usually means as far as I know. So if someone's sharing some information, they might say as far as I know this or that. BTW means by the way, if someone's trying to share a little aside or something like that. IDC usually means I don't care. Sometimes it can be in a I'm annoyed, I don't care sense, but a lot of time it means your pick. I don't mind what type of Flashpoint or ice cream we get. Go ahead and choose. IDK means I don't know. So if you ask a question, other person doesn't know the answer, IDK. IIRC is if I recall correctly. So once again, if someone's trying to share information, but they are 100% sure about it, they might say, if I recall correctly, IIRC first. IMHO, in my humble opinion, and IMO, in my opinion. They're sharing something that may be seen as fact, but they want to make it clear that it's just their opinion and others may have a different opinion. We mentioned OFC, of course, gets used quite a bit too. TBH means to be honest, and this is someone probably sharing a less popular sentiment before they say what they're going to say, like, to be honest, I kinda hate Galactic Starfighter, or to be honest, I hate the Sith Warrior or something like that, even though they know they might get some flack for saying it. TLDR means too long, didn't read. This doesn't get used too much in chat, but it could refer to maybe a guide was too long, didn't read, so most of my guides. And the player is letting you know they didn't, either sarcastically or just being honest that they didn't read the whole thing. ASAP, as soon as possible. ATM does not mean the bank machines. It usually means at the moment, though it doesn't get used that much. FYI is for your information. Usually someone's giving a correction so the player gets the correct info. IRL stands for in real life. Like, for example, if you're saying, I am a Jedi Knight in-game, but IRL, I am a tax analyst. LMK means let me know. Usually the player's just waiting for some type of information, like, are you going to be available tonight? Let me know. TMI is too much information, so someone oversharing in chat, usually in general chat. W/E, or just WE, usually stands for whatever. Let's talk about leaving messages. Sometimes you just gotta go. So AFK means away from keyboard. So if you ask me something or try to move forward in the content we're doing, I'm not gonna be here, just to let you know. BRB is be right back. It gets used a lot. Bio, BIO, I don't know exactly what it's short for. Biology break usually means a bathroom break, like a polite way of saying I gotta do a number 2. GTG is got to go, usually means they're leaving, but GTG can also mean good to go, like we're ready to go. G2G could be got to go, and G2G could be good to go. Hate that acronym so much because it can mean either one in any case. So make sure to check in with your player if it's important. DC gets used a lot too. It means disconnected. So one of your group mates might say, oh, so-and-so DC'd. Means they disconnected. Hopefully they'll be back soon once they get their internet working again. Lag means usually a player says, sorry, lag, or something like that, and it means they're falling behind due to internet latency or computer slowness. They're struggling with whatever they're supposed to be doing in game because the game's acting slower than it should be. Ping is whether your connection is good or bad. So if you have if a player says they're having a bad ping or something, it's going to be similar to if they had bad lag. ISP is Internet Service Provider. For example, my ISP is a poo and horrible and I hate it and I wish there was other options available, but in the meantime I have to deal with what I got. Relog usually means switching characters, or they might be restarting their game. Switching just by itself means they're switching characters and they're letting you know that they're going to log off of their current one, but they're coming back. Ragequit is the player logged out of the game in anger. They're probably not going to be back. Usually used to describe another player in the group. And squelched means they're unable to post in chat due to being reported or spam filters. You might say, I got squelched, or so-and-so got squelched, so they won't be able to reply easily. Now let's talk about the angry messages. So SMH means shaking my head, usually in disappointed. FFS means for force's sake. It's an expression, but stronger than that. An expression of frustration over an event or player actions. GTFO, get the force out. Sometimes it's used very jokingly in surprise, not actually get out of here, just like, oh my god kind of way. Get out of here. STFU, shut the force up. A very rude expression of frustration at a player's words. WTF is a what the force. WTH means what the hell. BS means bull Sith. And a troll is specifically a player who is causing trouble on purpose. JFC might come up a lot, and it is a religious angry message. Someone is very frustrated at you. And there's a lot of talk about the status of your account in the game. So first off, free to play, it often gets shortened to F2P. So free to play account where you've never spent any money on the game usually refers to F2P. Sub, just SUB, usually refers to subscribed. Pref, PREF, refers to preferred player, which is somewhere in between. XP stands for experience, what you use to level up. And so does EXP. RXP, which I don't see used a lot, is Renown XP. After you hit max level, you'll keep getting XP, but instead of leveling up your main level, then it goes into a separate track that every time you gain a level in that, you get a gearbox. CXP used to refer to the similar gearing up track called Command Experience. Shouldn't get used anymore, but sometimes people accidentally call Renown XP CXP. I guess it could technically stand for Conquest Points as well. If you ever see the term 12x, there was an event in the past where experience was multiplied by 12 and leveling was super fast. Sometimes players will be referring to this old event, or sometimes they're just referring to the fact that experience comes really fast these days. CS stands for customer support, like you're having an issue, go contact customer support. Devs refers to the BioWare developers, the people who make the game. BW usually stands for BioWare, the people who make the game. PTS comes up a lot. It's the public test server, and that's where they put updates to the game before they go live, and players who are subscribed can test them and download a second test copy of the game. CSR usually stands for Customer Support Representative, so if someone contacts customer support and the person doesn't understand what they're saying or they were super helpful, they might talk about their CSR, the person who helped them. QOL stands for quality of life. It's usually referring to a game update, something like not a brand new story or Flashpoint, but something small that makes life a lot easier in the game that's been added. If you see someone referring to GFX, that usually refers to graphics, either the graphics of the game or a graphics card on your computer. SK stands for security key. And this is a way to protect your account and also get free cartel coins. Then there's the expansions. So if you see the word X pack, that usually stands for the word expansion. So which is your favorite X pack? There's ROTHC, Rise of the Hutt Cartel is the first one on the planet of Macau. Shadow of Revan is SOR, which is the second expansion. The two expansions that go together are KOTFE, or Kotfi, Knights of the Fallen Empire, and KOTET, Kotet, Knights of the Eternal Throne. And the latest expansion is just called Onslaught. We don't have an acronym for it. Now let's talk about player versus player. There are some really odd terms that you may not know if you start getting into PvP a lot. So you may hear some of these. WZ just stands for Warzone, normal player versus player content. RWZ sometimes means a ranked Warzone, probably more ranked arena. Regs are normal, non-ranked player versus player matches, so regular matches. And solos or solo queue is solo ranked Warzones. Funny little term that we have is YOLOs, which is solo ranked Warzones combined with the phrase you only live once. It's just a popular phrase with the kids these days. Carpe diem, PvP! G-ranked is group-ranked Warzones. There's Cap. An enemy is trying to capture the objective. Please stop them. Or the person saying that they're currently capping. Please protect me and keep the enemy away. INC, or INC, stands for incoming. Usually referring to enemies and the players trying to call for backup. Or just to let everybody know that if they die, they'll lose whatever they're protecting. An arena is a 4 versus 4 player versus player map. So you'll get these sometimes in regular Warzones, and they're the only type of match you can play in ranked player versus player matches. Globaled means you died in one global cooldown, so you died very, very quickly. MVP is most valuable player. It's a voting system in player versus player content. Someone who is a thrower is a player who is deliberately throwing matches to lose on purpose. Inting, INT, is a player who is intentionally losing matches on purpose. Feeding is a player who's helping another player on the other team gain something like medals, tokens, or wins to their team's detriment, letting the enemy win. Carrying, a player is helping carry another player to win when that player would not have normally, like I'm carrying you in my backpack. This can be both a negative and a positive term, because usually it's a friend doing it for another and they're not breaking the rules in any way. A pocket healer is a healer who focuses on healing one person, usually a friend. And timeout is a term referred to when a player gets locked out of group content temporarily through the group finder. Now that we've covered player versus player content, let's get into that PvE, player versus environment content, like Flashpoints and Operations. So first off, many of these different types of contents have different modes. So the easiest mode is called story mode, and it's usually referred to as SM for story mode, or just the word story. HM stands for hard mode. This is a deprecated term. It actually refers to veteran mode now, which is usually VM. So the middle mode can be called HM or VM, depending on how old the player is. And then the most difficult mode in the game is currently called Master Mode, so usually shortened to MM. But most players, especially those into that type of content, refer to it by the old name, which is Nightmare Mode. So if you see NIM or NMM, it's referring to the most difficult mode, Master Mode, but the players saying Nightmare Mode. And lastly, there's Solo Mode, which is just single player mode. Next up, we'll cover Flashpoints. Players are often looking to put Flashpoint groups together in general chat, often on the fleet. And here's some of the acronyms that they use. RR is Red Reaper Flashpoint. HS is Hammer Station Flashpoint. FE is the False Emperor Flashpoint, though sometimes it means Fallen Empire, depends on the context. BH means Blood Hunt, or Bounty Hunter, depends on the context. KUS can stand for Can Under Siege Flashpoint. LI, Lost Island Flashpoint. Zerka, that starts with CZ. This could refer to the Zerka Corporate Labs or Zerka Core Meltdown Flashpoints, or it might be called the CZ198 Flashpoints or the CZ Flashpoints. Just gonna have to go on context for that one. AOT stands for Assault on Tython Flashpoint. Korriban, when it's not referring to the actual planet, could be referring to the Korriban Incursion Flashpoint. And those come quite later. They're part of the Shadow of Revan Prelude. DOM, Depths of Manon. And COU is Crisis on Umbara, which is part of the Traitor arc, along with TATC, Traitor Among the Chiss. The Nathema Conspiracy usually gets called just Nathema Flashpoint. And lastly, KDY stands for the Kuat Drive Yards Flashpoint. Now let's talk about operations. This is probably some of the most common ones you'll see in chat, because operations are the most commonly formed up type of group activity in chat. So you'll see people looking for more players for a specific operation. And here's the different acronyms that we have for each different op. KP stands for Karaga's Palace, and EV stands for Eternity Vault. These are the two easiest operations in the game. So if you're looking to try operations, like you're subscribed, you're high enough level, you know the very basics about your class, if you see someone looking for more for KP or EV, no matter what the mode is, those are the ones you want to jump into if you can. EC stands for Explosive Conflict, could also stand for Eternal Championship, so once again, context. Dread Fortress and Dread Palace are two operations, and DF and DP are their acronyms. S and V stands for Scum and Villainy. TFB stands for Terror from Beyond. RAV, REV, is a short form for Ravagers. TOS stands for Temple of Sacrifice, but it could also stand for Terms of Service, so once again, context. GFTM, I always get this one wrong, is Gods from the Machine operation. Sometimes players will just call it Gods as well, looking for more for Gods. DXUN is actually Duxin. It's the name of the planet for the operation Nature of Progress, and refers to that operation. TC is Taboro's Courtyard, jokingly sometimes called Golden Chicken for the boss in the fight. Monolith refers to the Colossal Monolith, boss on Ziost. GQ stands for the Geonosian Queen on Osis. And then there's the two event operation bosses. The Eyeless is the Rackwill event boss, and Xeno is the Gree event boss called Xeno Analyst 2. Next up is servers. Which server are you on? SF stands for Star Forge. SS stands for Satil Shan, and those are the two North American servers. DM stands for Darth Malgus. As we mentioned earlier, it can also stand for Direct Message for a private message or whisper. TL can sometimes stand for the Leviathan. Tulak Horde, or just Tulak, is TH, and that's the German server. We'll go over the economy next. GTN stands for Galactic Trade Network, and this is where players can buy and sell items to other players. WTB stands for Wanting to Buy. WTT stands for Wanting to Trade, and WTS stands for Wanting to Sell. LTT is looking to trade, LTS is looking to sell, very much the same. COD does not stand for Call of Duty, it stands for Cash on Delivery through the mailbox, so you can send an item with a request for cash attached to it, and the player has to pay before they get the item. Cartel Market stands for CM, and that's the Cartel Coins Market. CC stands for Cartel Coins. In the context of combat, though, it stands for crowd control and stuns and stuff like that, though. Creds usually refers to credits, the in-game currency. Transmog is World of Warcraft's version of the outfit designer for making cosmetic costumes. It stands for Transmogrify. And in a similar vein, Xmog also stands for Transmog, which stands for the outfit designer in Star Wars The Old Republic. If you need another name for the GTN, some players also call it Auction House, which is a term from other games for the player-run market. When it comes to items, items have different labels as to whether you can trade or buy them or sell them or not. So a bound item is an item that's stuck on your character, cannot be traded or sent to your other characters. An unbound item means that you can buy and sell it to other players or your other characters. BOE stands for binds on equip. Once you use the item, like once you equip it once, then you cannot trade it around. It becomes bound. But before then, you can give it to other players or characters. BOP means binds on pickup. The second you pick it up, it becomes bound. And lastly, binds on legacy. You can trade it between your characters in your account, but you can't trade it to other players. Now let's get into some of the most complicated acronyms in the game, and these all revolve around combat, and they are often hard to guess what they mean in the context, and they're often being asked for very quickly, often in the middle of combat. So let's go over these, and I highly recommend, if you're going to memorize any, these would probably be the ones to look into if you're looking to do group content. If you're not looking to do group content, these don't really matter too much at all unless you're trying to optimize your character. DPS technically stands for damage per second, but it actually means a damage-based character. So looking for a DPS means you're looking for a character whose main role is to deal damage. And DD stands for damage dealer, same thing. AoE stands for area of effect, so a damage ability that hits multiple targets. So your group might say AoE them down, which means group them up and use your multi-target attacks, or don't AoE. Dot or DOT is damage over time, so an ability that does an effect that does damage over a period of time instead of all at once. CD is a cooldown, so the wait time between abilities. Sometimes it also stands for DCD, which is specifically a defensive cooldown. And so someone says use a CD or use a DCD, it means use something so you take less damage during that time period. GCD is the global cooldown, so once again the time you wait between abilities, you'll see the little timer on them move up and down. HPS, heals per second, so how well is a healer doing? HOT, or HOT, is heal over time, and just heals by itself can refer to either a healing character, like looking for heals, is looking for a healer character, or I need heals means the person is hoping not to die. Your choice if you want to heal them or not. So you'll see these ones in chat for groups forming up to DWT. This stands for damage with taunt. So this is a character who's a damage-based character, but also has a taunt ability available, so they can kind of pretend to be a tank while actually being a damage character. And there's a very similar one, DWH, which is damage with heals, a character who's a damage character, but also has healing abilities on the side and can kind of pretend to be a healer here and there. So I don't love this phrase, but it does get used a lot. It's not meant to be derogatory, I don't think. It's just a term that's kind of stuck. It's called a skank tank. A tank character wearing DPS gear. So they are kind of like a damage with a taunt in the fact that they can taunt, but they have more of a focus on damage, but they are actually a tank wearing damage gear, but have the other bonuses of being a tank, unlike a damage with taunt. CC stands for crowd control. It also stands for cartel coins, so just once again, if it's a combat context, it's probably crowd control, and usually means to either stun permanently or temporarily an enemy. A cleave is a damage attack, usually by the boss, that faces forward from the enemy, so don't stand in the boss's cleave, stand behind him. So there's also a ton of terms when it comes to crowd control that you might see. Maybe the raid leader will ask for some type of crowd control to help contain some of the enemies. So there's a MES, M-E-Z or M-E-S. It stands for Mesmerize from a different game. It just means a long-term stun, a crowd control. SAP, S-A-P, is very much the same thing. Sleep is very much the same thing. So, how that translates once you're actually in game, that might be an enemy gets whirlwinded into the air and stays there for a while, or they might like kind of doze their head and fall asleep for a bit, caused by a player. And the idea is that you're not supposed to attack those enemies that have been crowd controlled, because they'll stay out of the fight if you don't hurt them. LOS stands for line of sight. This can be used in a lot of contexts. So the first one that you'll see the most often is we will LOS the boss, or we will LOS the smaller enemies that we're coming up on. And that means we're going to hide together as a group. One person's going to go out and grab them, and we're going to hide. And this is going to cause all the enemies to run to us. And more importantly, the enemies will group up, and that way be able to damage them down faster because they're all standing together instead of all spread out. Sometimes if it's against a boss, it means we're trying to have the boss run to a specific location. And a lot of the bosses, they have ranged attacks, so if you run away from them, they'll just like pew pew you from afar. But if you LOS them, it means that they can't see you, so they'll run after you and run to whatever that location is. The second way that LOS can be used is maybe by a healer. I'm losing LOS, I'm not able to see you, and so I can't heal you. So stop running behind that pillar or that wall, whatever it is. And of course, LOS can just be used for line of sight, if a character can't hit the boss because they can't see them, they've lost LOS. During the fight, someone might ask for a BR, a CR, a res, a revive. So we've got a BR is a battle revive, a CR is a combat revive, a res, R-E-Z or R-E-S is resurrect. So once again, a revive. And that's a ability that only certain classes have, pretty much referring to healers that can revive a player in combat. And it's a different ability than revive. So if you're playing a class that can be a healer, not necessarily that you are a healer, make sure to find that ability and put it on your bars and be familiar with what it is, because it can help a lot when your team's calling out for a battle revive and you're like, I don't even know what that is. On top of that, that can also be referring to characters that have a stealth out ability. They can stealth out of combat. That would be usually called a stealth revive. They'll stealth out of combat, no longer be engaged in combat, run over to that player and possibly be able to revive them. It works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. So those are the most important ones that you might want to know if you're doing group content. The next ones are less important and less heat of the moment. So FOTM is Flavor of the Month, which is a powerful combat class due to recent game changes and kind of whichever type of class players feel right now is overplayed because it's powerful right now. LO is short for lockout. So it can mean two different things. It could mean I'm locked out and I can't run that operation right now because I did it earlier. Or it can mean I have a lockout. And that's an interesting concept where you played part of the operation with a different group. And you can continue it with this group from that boss you stopped at. So let's say your group wants to do the last boss. You might say, I have a last boss lockout, and your new group can do just the last boss and skip the rest. In that case, a lot of players use the term LBLO, last boss lockout, where a group can skip to the last boss of an operation. So meta is META is kind of a complicated term. It can be used a lot of different ways. But in general, in a fight, it's using the most effective tacticals available is what the players say it stands for. If you're playing the meta, you've looked at all the data and you know exactly how to take care of things here. BIS is best in slot and is referring to equipment. So it could be, are you wearing best in slot? Are you working on best in slot? Do you need this item? It's best in slot. Comp, C-O-M-P, can mean two different things. It can mean a companion. So let's say you're in a group of 2 players plus yourself, and you're missing a 4th player for your Flashpoint or Heroic. Someone might say, can you pull out your comp? That means your companion. And then if you're in a big group, comp might mean composition. What is your group made up of? You'll hear this word a lot if you're looking up class guides or receiving any advice about playing your class, and that's the word proc. P-R-O-C. And this, I didn't realize, so I was making this guide, actually is a bit of an acronym, and it stands for Programmed Random Occurrences. So in SWTOR, what that means is one of your abilities is activating with some type of special effect. If you see it sparkling on your bar, that means it is procced. And it usually means it will cost less resources, like you'll be able to cast it for free, or it will cast immediately, like if normally it takes time, you can click it and it'll go right away, or it means it'll do extra damage or have some other cool effect because it's procced. Aggro is kind of short for aggravate or aggravated, and it refers specifically for the tank to have the aggro, the attention of the boss. So sometimes a player will say, oops, I accidentally gained aggro, because they're not supposed to have the attention of the boss. Another thing people might say in the group is, please drop aggro, and that means using one of your abilities that reduces your threat towards the boss, and you'll usually say that in the actual text of your ability. RNG stands for Random Number Generator. So basically anything that's randomization in the game could be referring to stats of your gear, gear that's dropped, things that happen in the fight that you can't always account for. It could just be so many things. If you see OP, we mentioned earlier it could stand for ops, but if you're talking about characters or classes or bosses or enemies, it usually stands for overpowered. This could refer most often to a boss. Maybe it's just tuned really a lot more difficult than the other bosses are, or one enemy's just really bad. The group might say, oh, that one's really overpowered, so don't feel too bad that we're struggling with this one. And otherwise, it can refer to a class. So you're saying flavor of the month would be overpowered. If you see someone use CP, it could refer to conquest points or combat proficiency. People don't use this acronym a lot, but it refers to your discipline or your tree, which of the disciplines have you chosen. If you press K on the keyboard, it'll show you the list of ones that you have available. So players are usually asking, which one have you chosen? You might see the term Noob, N-O-O-B, or spelt Noob, N-E-W-B. It usually refers to a new player or an inexperienced player. I think in the past it might have been a derogatory term, like, ugh, new player. But I think a lot of the time groups use it kind of jokingly or just descriptively, like, oh, I'm a noob to operations. It's just expressing that you're new to them and could maybe be cut a little more slack or be given a little more explanation. You'll sometimes hear players lovingly refer to teammates as nub, N-U-B, which is just a silly term for noob. Doesn't really mean anything in particular. You'll sometimes see groups looking for or talking about RDPS and MDPS, and that refers to ranged damage characters and melee damage characters. Unfortunately, the game has a bias towards ranged characters as they have a lot more room to run around and get less hurt. So groups usually try and not have too many melee DPS, or they have to develop different strategies for reducing damage for MDPS and RDPS. So they're usually either strategizing Or they're saying like MDPS stand here, range DPS stand here, and you'll want to know which one you are. RC stands for ready check, and this is a function a group leader in a large group can activate, and it'll say yes or no, are you ready? But sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes you're in too small of a group, so it just means like let me know if you're ready or not. If there's no pop-up or someone's requesting please do a ready check. And if you accidentally click no but you're ready, you can put R in the chat and it stands for ready. If someone says F, it's a joke from another video game. It's press F to pay respects. So if something dumb happens or someone dies or fails, you might press F in the chat, F for paying respects for their death. RIP stands for rest in peace. Usually kind of used jokingly when someone dies. You'll see the letter X used quite a bit in chat. So it'll say X up, X in chat, or just players posting a bunch of X's. This is because a group leader is trying to put a group together and they're trying to save time, and they want to be able to right click the players' names to invite them to the group and confirm that they're in for whatever activity. So they'll say X up or X in chat, and that means if you want and are able to participate, type X in this chat and I'll right click your name and invite you, and then the players will just type X. It makes things a lot easier for forming groups. Stuck. You'll sometimes see this, especially during operations, rarely during flashpoints. A player will just say stuck. And this is actually a request, not I'm stuck in a piece of terrain usually. It means please type /stuck, STUCK, into your chat box if you're not already dead, as that will kill you, or kill your character rather, and it'll help restart the fight faster instead of waiting for everyone to die organically. In a similar vein, a wipe, just wipe in the chat is wanting to do the same thing. It's a waste of time to continue this fight, let's start it over. Eye level with a ILVL stands for the item rating of your equipment. You can see this number on the top left of your equipment screen, and some types of content require a certain item rating or higher, so you don't get smushed. LVL just stands for level, usually your normal level, but check the context. SPEC, SPEC, stands for specialization, and that refers to your combat proficiency, your discipline, or your tree. Not what is your class, not what is your advanced class, but what is the third option you chose after that. K for combat, you can check it there. GM stands for Guild Master or Guild Leader. Ding is a fun little term players use to refer to when they gain a level. You might say I dinged or hey you dinged. QQ is something you'll see in chat sometimes. It usually means the player is complaining or crying about something. So a player might use it to describe another player saying stop QQing, stop complaining. Or a player might use it themselves, just the words QQ, as if they're like crying about something or upset about something. LS usually stands for light side, and DS usually stands for dark side. Can be used in a wide variety of situations. To parse is to measure your combat effectiveness using outside software. So players usually use Star Parse, which sometimes is referred to as SP. So are you in Star Parse? Jump into Star Parse is a, as far as I can tell, safe piece of software that almost all endgame raiders use, and it'll help you find out if you're doing a good amount of damage or not, or healing or whatever else. A gank is short for gang kill, so usually it means a group ganged up to kill you in an unfair fight. This refers to, I think, the most in the open world, when open world PvP used to be bigger, if you were by yourself and a giant group came and murdered you. But it can also refer to like player versus player content if you feel you got unfairly smooshed. If you see the word drop while you're in a group, it means drop group, or leave the group. This usually means they're having some type of issues and need to restart the group in some way. So if I say I'm going to drop group, I'm leaving, maybe I'll give some context, I'm switching. Or maybe it means I'm going to drop the group and restart it. If you aren't sure what's going on, just ask. If a player says link, link in chat or something like that, it usually means they want you to link the item or sometimes the quest so others can view it and click it for more details, or preview it if it's a cosmetic item. So you can shift and left click the name of the quest, an item, and lots of other things in chat to share it with your group. You might sometimes see the word pred, P-R-E-D, which is short for predation. It's a group-wide movement speed ability that makes the group go faster. It's usually like saying, I will use predation, or can you use predation? If you don't know what it is, don't worry about it. Farm. To farm is to run a type of content quickly and efficiently to get the rewards quickly. So you'll often see Karaga's Palace farm, or maybe Taboro's Courtyard farm, or Flashpoint farm, where they're looking for other players who are looking to go fast, not looking to necessarily take their time and learn the content. To kite is to run away from the enemy to avoid damage by staying out of range. So if you're requested to kite, it means run away. Adds, ADDS, stands for additional enemies, and so does mobs, stands for additional enemies. So you've got the main boss, and then maybe you'll have little bosses or little enemies that show up that you have to do something with during a big fight. LT stands for lieutenant. In an operations group, they have the ability to invite other players, use markers on the bosses and stuff like that. OOC is out of combat, can mean out of character in roleplay, but it usually means out of combat. So like maybe do a OOC stealth res. See, they get changed up real fast here. Buff is an ability that makes you stronger. It shows up above your character portrait, and a debuff is an ability that makes you weaker, and it also shows up above your character portrait. Both buffs and debuffs can be very important when you start getting into the harder content. For example, certain debuffs need to be removed with a cleansing ability, or certain buffs means it's a great time to go do a specific thing. So if you ever see someone referring to buffs or debuffs and you don't know what they mean, ask them for more details and what the buff or debuff looks like. Nerf is an ability or class that was made weaker by the developers, or even maybe a boss. So, oh, my ability got nerfed recently. Means it got made less strong, or I hope they nerf this boss because it's too hard. Maybe it's overpowered compared to the other enemies in the encounter. PROG, P-R-O-G, stands for progression group, and this means a group that's mostly made of the same players who meet up at roughly the same time every week to make progress together on the harder content in the game. This can be a very experienced group, or it can be a newer group that is working together to progress. So you might say, oh, I can't go to that event, I'm raiding with my prog group tonight. HP usually stands for your health and how much health you have. The words ammo, force, heat, there's a couple others. They refer to your combat resources, the other bar above your character portrait that isn't your health. Mana are magic points from World of Warcraft. It usually refers to your combat resources like your force or ammo. Like I'm out of mana means I'm out of force power. And lastly, there is a ton of acronyms for the different abilities and buffs in the game, and we do not have time to go over all of those because this video is already way too long. Many planets in the Star Wars universe do have quick little short terms to refer to them. So first off, if someone asks you to QT, it stands for quick travel on a planet. So it's an ability that you have. You can press P in your abilities to find the quick travel ability, and when you click it, it'll show you a map of locations that you've discovered that you can quick travel to. And then each planet, here's some of their short forms. The fleet refers to the Republic or Imperial Fleet, depending on your faction. TAT, T-A-T, is Tatooine. ALD, A-L-D, is Alderaan. NAR or NARS is Nar Shaddaa, or NS is Nar Shaddaa. BAL is Balmorra. Core is Corellia. Could be Coruscant, usually not, or sometimes it is. Yav is Yavin 4. Ord is Ord Mantell. KORR is Korriban. OSS could be Osus. CZ is CZ-198. DK is drum and costs, and bells could be bell service. Crafting has a ton of acronyms related to it. There's bio for biochem, or it could be bioanalysis. Usually it's biochem as far as I can tell. Scav is scavenging. Diplo is diplomacy. TH is short for treasure hunting. UT is short for underworld trading. Arch is short for archaeology. Slice is short for slicing. Synth is short for synth weaving. Art is short for artifice, and all of those are different crafting or gathering skills. We've got mats, which are short for crafting materials. Depending on when you watch this video, these may no longer be relevant, but embers stand for legendary ember, a rare crafting material for level 75. ISOs stand for processed isotope stabilizer, a rare crafting material, once again for level 75. SRM is a solid resource matrix, rare crafting material. OEM, rare crafting material for augments, but only comes from master mode operations, as well as the new quest that's coming up on the fleet. RPMs are a rare crafting material for level 75 augments from ranked PvP or that same quest where you trade in tech fragments for materials. RE is a very important part of crafting, and it refers to the term reverse engineer. In the current iteration of the game, it actually is called deconstruct, I think, is to break down a crafted item you crafted to learn a new schematic, and this is how you get the best schematics in the game. To disintegrate, or desint, is to break down gear for materials. It's usually the same as deconstruct. Technically it means something else, but a lot of players just kind of use them all interchangeably. JJ can stand for Jawa Junk, a type of currency you can turn in for crafting materials on the fleet. There's a lot of acronyms related to the different classes and advanced classes in the game. First off, AC stands for your advanced class. The SI stands for the Sith Inquisitor. Sin, S-I-N, is a short form for Assassin, which is the advanced class of the Sith Inquisitor, and the other one, Sorc, S-O-R-C, the Sorcerer, is the other advanced class for the Sith Inquisitor. Next up is the Sith Warrior, which is shortened to SW, and their two advanced classes are the Jug, short for Juggernaut, and Mara, short for Marauder. The Jedi Knight is often shortened to JK, and its advanced classes are the Scent, the Sentinel, and the Guardian, which usually isn't shortened at all. The Jedi Consular is usually shortened to JC, and their two advanced classes, the Shadow and Sage, usually don't need to be shortened. The Imperial Agent is the IA, and their advanced classes are the Operative, which is shortened to OP. I know, it also stands for Operation. Things get confusing, not to mention Overpowered. And the other Imperial Agent is the Sniper Advanced class. The Bounty Hunter is shortened to BH, and their two advanced classes are the PT, the Power Tech, and the Merc, the Mercenary. The Smuggler is sometimes called the Smug, and their advanced classes are the Scoundrel, which isn't shortened usually, and GS for Gunslinger, their other advanced class. Lastly, there's the VG, the Vanguard, and the Commando, which isn't shortened, which belong to the Trooper class. There is also a ton of acronyms and shorthand and pet names for the different combat proficiencies or disciplines for each advanced class, and there is a ton because there's 48 different combat proficiencies in the game, and some of them even have multiple different nicknames. So I'm just going to leave you guys the text list to go look at instead. When it comes to your gear has a lot of different stats, and almost all of them are turned into short form when talking about them in chat. So there's Mast, which is Mastery, End, which is Endurance, POW, which is Power, Crit is the most common one you'll see, is Critical. There's Alac for Alacrity, ACC for Accuracy, Def for Defense, Shield and Absorb have short forms too. DR can stand for Damage Reduction, sometimes Diminishing Returns. AR is Armor Rating, and arm pen is armor penetration. There's a lot of terms about gaming in general that come up a lot in Star Wars The Old Republic, so let's go over those so you know what people are talking about. An MMO is a massive multiplayer online, and then infer the word game after that. An MMORPG is a massive multiplayer online role-playing game. If you haven't figured it out yet, SWTOR stands for Star Wars The Old Republic, but some players use TOR for The Old Republic. Here's two games that aren't the game we're talking about, but are very often referenced. KOTOR, KOTOR, is Knights of the Old Republic, the single-player predecessor game to this game, and Knights of the Old Republic 2 also exists. It's called KOTOR 2 or TSL, short for the Sith Lords. There's also SWG, Star Wars Galaxies, which is an old Star Wars game, and a lot of players of Star Wars The Old Republic originally played that game back in the day. There's also SWGOH, so it looks like SWGO, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and that's a mobile game that a lot of players I noticed like who play SWTOR. And then there's GOH, same thing, Galaxy of Heroes, the mobile game. You might see FO for Fallen Order, another really good recent single-player Star Wars game. BF for Battlefront, usually Battlefront 2. It's a combat-focused online Star Wars game. And FPS, a first-person shooter style of game. Not what SWTOR is, but a lot of players reference it in chat. And lastly, players tend to use emoticons in chat, and these are a mashup of text characters that produce what appears to be kind of a sideways face to share an expression. We don't have emojis in the game, so these are the next closest thing that people might use. Some players consider them immature, but they're one of the few ways you can express an emotion beside your text without typing out, "I am happy" or "I am joking." And just like all of these acronyms, you can visit a huge list that you can search through. If you need to, press Control F and type in the acronym you're looking for on Swtorista.com.